Okay, I want to start off this mini lecture by discussing writing errors. Sometimes they're grammatical errors, sometimes they're style errors, um, but I want to call your attention to these issues with writing so that when you sit down to write, it's kind of in your mind. So, um, it's not as if you're just free writing. It's like, oh, let me be conscious of and aware of some of the things that I should be doing in my writing. So, if we see here, the first area, this is a style. It's not the end of the world if you don't do this, but this is the generally acceptable style. You will notice that when you're reading newspapers or magazines, etc., you will see that numbers under nine and under, are spelled out. One, ONE, two, TWO. And then when you get to the higher numbers, the figures are actually used. So when you're writing whatever kind of essay and you see three cats, you should spell out three, THREE. And take a notice when you're reading everyday text. You'll see that this is the commonly accepted style. The next area here, of course, is something that we want to be careful with. We don't want to be sloppy with. Pay attention to punctuation because that is going to give us different meanings. I saw a teacher who cares. I saw a teacher who cares. Two different meanings, same sequence of words, punctuation is different. So be aware of that. Another thing is a style. When we are writing, we want to move away from cliches. Cliches are things that we have read over and over again. They bring nothing new to the text. It's just boring. It's repetitive. Been there, done that. As white as snow. Angry as a bull. All of these things. Avoid the use of cliches in your writing. You want to come up with something that is more original. To segue into that here, do not use many repetitions. Do not write like this. Do not do it. I say that because I will see sometimes student writing, and let me give you an example. I gave an intro assignment. It was just it's a kind of like a free writing assignment, and it was like, well, if I had $1 million, what would you do with $1 million? And it would be the repetition would be starting every single sentence with, if I had $1 million, I would blah, blah, blah. If I had $1 million, I would do this. If I had $1 million, I would also do that. This says I don't know how to structure my essay. So while sometimes repetition is good, particularly when we're doing speeches, in writing, in general, it just looks like that we're filling up space and we don't really know what we're trying to say. So we want to avoid that. Here, spelling out common symbols. Again, this is, if we're getting too relaxed in our writing, in academic writing, we have to be aware of this. Academic writing obviously is different from the writing that you're going to do in text messages, on Facebook. So you want to spell out your common symbols, and don't do any of that text stuff, like U, the letter U for YOU. Be aware of that. If we get into the habit of always spelling our words or using symbols to express our thoughts in writing, we're not separating out that we need to be more formal in certain areas of our writing. And of course, academic writing calls for formality. Again, building on that, too casual usage. If you're writing, it's $1,000, it's not a grand. Spell out television, not TV. Cause is a totally different word from because. So don't do that. Or cuz, C-U-Z, don't do that. Nowadays is a word, but it's a little casual. You should use now. Another word I see used a lot is female for a woman, and that's way too casual. Human females are called women. Um, you know what other females of other species are called. So it's too casual. You want to avoid that. Let's move on. Sentence fragments. We want to look at the two biggest issues in beginning writers. Sentence fragments are incomplete thoughts. The sentences do not tell all of the information. And usually you need to have a connector between two ideas, or you need to add more information. But you cannot have a sentence be an incomplete thought. Even if the next sentence completes the thought, you need to connect them together. So if we look here, because his car was in the shop, this probably is a sentence that came after another thought. Both of those sentences need to be put together. Because his car was in the shop, what did he do? Well, why was, I don't know what's going on. So if you see it as it's taken out of context, you can see that this sentence doesn't tell us anything. The other hand is run-on sentences. Run-on sentences are sentences that never end, and they have too many thoughts within them, or they have two things that have nothing to do with each other. So an example here would be, my favorite Mediterranean spread is hummus. It is very garlicky. That's a run-on sentence because there are two different thoughts within here. It's that I love hummus, and I also love it because it is garlicky. But we need to make sure we have our connections. So one thing that you might have learned when you were in elementary school is fanboys. Those are connecting words. They are conjunctions. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. You want to use them, and then you can take two ideas, and it will no longer be a run-on sentence. My favorite Mediterranean spread is hummus, and it is very garlicky. Okay, very simple. So we want to pay attention to that in our writing. Another area, contractions. You want to get into the habit of not using contractions in your formal academic writing. And it sounds a little stiff, but that is how we write formally. Take the contractions out. It's not I'm or I'd or I'll. It's I am, I would, I will, etc. Take the contractions out. Another area here, be aware of. I'm not saying you don't know this. It's just sometimes we're not paying attention to it in our writing. So be aware of it. When we are forming possessives, it is apostrophe S. If we leave that out, it is a plural. So the first area, Kim's cars, with the apostrophe, that means the car that belongs to Kim. The second is Kim's car literally means the two Kims have a car. Okay, so we know that doesn't make sense. Try not to use prepositions or conjunctions to start a sentence. This could be another lazy way of starting our sentences, so we want to avoid that. I see sometimes students will have a thought, they'll complete their sentence, and they'll start the next sentence with so. So, blah, blah, blah. It's not a good habit. It doesn't look polished. It doesn't look like this person is putting much thought into their writing. You can sometimes do it if you want to do it for, emphasis, but you want to avoid it as best you can. Another area I want to call your attention to is always try to be very specific in your writing. Not necessarily you're writing a list, but you don't want to just buy a house. You want to buy a house that's Tudor style with tulips in the front yard. Something that gives the reader more of an idea of what you're talking about. So work on being specific. Another one, which is very big with me, is homonym errors. Please pay attention to this. I know that you know the difference in the words, but you need to make sure you're not doing this because it is very sloppy. There, two, it's, there's a whole bunch of them. Okay? You know, there is a possessive. This is they are. There is over there. You know this. Here's another one I see a lot of. It's. It's with an apostrophe means it is. If you can say in the sentence it is, you know you need to use that one. If it's a possessive, it does not have a apostrophe. This is just me being a little naughty, so you can see the difference. Okay. Again, you can pause here and try to pick out the words that are homonyms but do not make sense within the sentence. For example, the first line here, English spelling can seem like a maze. What is incorrectly spelled? Sounds the same but incorrectly spelled. Seem and maze, right? Seem should be S-E-E-M, and maze, this is the maze of a corn. The maze that you need to have is M-A-Z-E. So pause here, go through it, and see if you can figure it out, because the next slide is the answers. Okay, so look through that. And then finally, common in the common writing style mini lecture, I want to impart to you, try to use words. Increase your vocabulary. As we are reading, pay attention to what you are reading. If there are new words, see how authors are using words. The kind of words that they are using in general are not going to be bland. You know, we have a lot of words in the English language, and they have different shades of meaning. And we can be very specific in what we are trying to say and to show our reader. So we want to avoid the bland words. So for example, I have good. So I just typed good in an online thesaurus, and these are just some of the words that came up that are synonyms to good. Well, aren't some of them better to use? You know, I like ice cream, it is good. Well, maybe I like ice cream because it's marvelous. It's exceptional. It's tip-top, superior, etc. You can see where I'm going with this. Start to take your words usage and, you know, vary in, okay? And you want to stay away from bland words. Okay, so that's the end of our first little mini lecture, and I'll be talking to you soon.